This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders.
We can call it now, right? We can finally say it, because at this point, I think it might just be undeniable. This is the greatest Springboks side of all time. Having been awoken from their worst ever world ranking by a genius coach, an inspirational captain, and an incredible batch of talent, the modern Springboks this Saturday completed something nigh on unheard of, becoming the first team since 1949 to win 4 consecutive games against New Zealand All Blacks, coming from behind once again to leave Cape Town with a 6-point victory and status as the world's best team cemented for another few months at least. The Freedom Cup secured for the first time since 2009, and one hand now on the Rugby Championship trophy that's eluded this Imperial Age Springbok team for the last 5 years. So that raises more than a few questions. Just how did the Boxers mantle the Blacks for that record win? How should the All Blacks be feeling after taking them all away, but once again falling just short? And can anything now stop South Africa's crusade through this championship and indeed this World Cup cycle? Saturday was an incredible, tense, high-level, high-intensity test match, both teams even and executing brilliantly, that nonetheless felt kinda odd, as some exceptional kicking and particularly breakdown work from both sides kept the ball lodged largely in the middle of the field for most of the match. Opportunities regular but clear-cut chances rare, momentum swings that would feel seismic during a normal game, regulation as two of the world's best teams imposed themselves on each other over and over again, just forcing momentum swings constantly in the kind of way only a real heavyweight encounter can bring, leaving us with a brilliantly entertaining match in that middle third. Because me oh my, yes boy, do the Springboks like to impose themselves. With the introduction of previously Japan attack coach Tony Brown making more headlines, the Springboks' new defence coach, former Ireland hooker and Premiership winning Quins man Gerry Flannery, has flown a bit under the radar. However, over the last few weeks we've begun to see a shift happen in how the Boks work without the ball under him. The system is largely the same, but there's a slight change in philosophy and approach, in accent, if you will, that feeds into the wider rebooted Bok approach. Under Jacques Nienaber and Felix Jones, South Africa's goal was to disrupt the opposition, to frustrate them, to break their spirits and exhaust their patience. Under Flannery, however, the Boks' focus has shifted slightly to being less about the opponents and more about themselves, while still executing the same ideas and systems. South Africa run largely the same structure, but with the focus now primarily on not disrupting the opposition, but getting the ball back. The Boks now contest far fewer breakdowns. Under Nienaber and Jones, it was commonplace to see Khaleesi or Vermeulen say to slow it down, to try and get in there, Etzebeth or whoever to counter-ruck, anything to just disrupt and frustrate. Instead, now the Boks are more patient, bouncing out and waiting for their chances. Here, the All Blacks recover from an almighty shove by South Africa at the scrum, and with Williams shutting down the passing channel brilliantly, it leaves Ratimer forced to carry himself and on the deck from the off, slowing the ball down. Nokia aids in the tackle and makes a nuisance of himself, then, following his lead over the next few phases, only the tackle or tackle assist contests the breakdown. Pollard's hit here is brilliant, and in past, Khaleesi here might have committed the ruck following or even attempted to choke tackle himself, but instead he bounces off, he waits by the side, and New Zealand reload brilliantly. Having come from the scrum, this has left the front row grouped together on this far side of the field, and Will Jordan spots this from the boot and calls the ball out, looking to attack that space, wanting to take on some big boys. Except we get to perhaps the other key element of the Boks are currently doing defensively. The 2011 to 2015 All Blacks, the other truly great team of the professional era, revolutionised the game by essentially teaching every player on the field to play the ball like a back, props and locks capable of mixing it with the centres and first 5/8, players almost homogenising an attack, wingers could clean out rucks alone and hookers finish tries out wide. South Africa, currently, to me, feels like they're trying to do the same thing with defence. On the surface, the Kiwis have created a mismatch here, but just as Pollard a few moments earlier filled the flanker role and made a hit to go with it, Bongi Mbonambi here, the hooker, finds himself defending at inside centre, and so he defends as an inside centre, spying the options out wide and assessing the risk. He makes a frankly world-class read, flying in like Damien Delande or Gabriel Vernier, like any world-class 12, from the outside of Barrett's eye line to shut it down, closing off the mismatch, and also the pass out the boot to Will Jordan instantly. Ox makes a great contact in the tackle, and whilst the All Blacks can recycle pretty quickly, Jordan drawing Moody, the typical exceptional work rate of Sia Khaleesi puts him in position to catch Talea and dislodge the ball, winning it back for the Springboks. The Boks only target now eminently winnable rucks, rarely looking to slow the ball down outside of in the tackle itself. This education and upskilling of basically everyone except Franz Malherbe, bless him, to operate as a centre or flanker role if needs be, negates the need to slow the ball down essentially. It's much less important, as it means they're always in shape, they're always set if they've always got someone there who can fill in as an emergency 12, in the way in past only really Khaleesi or Dutoy could. Their defence under Flannery has been designed to live with any speed of ball, no matter what, rather than looking to get both teams playing the Springboks' chosen tempo in that moment, and hence this allows the best jackalers to always be on their feet, ready to take the best chances only when they present themselves, rather than wasting them on phase after phase, slowing the ball down by a second or two. It means they're ready for the big moment when it comes. And yet, with everyone but Malherbe able to run these roles, it left the All Blacks with a pretty clear target in the shape of the tight head. Scott Barrett here clears Nokia past the ruck to slow Malherbe and Visa's fold, meaning when the ball gets out, Dutoy and Diolande both go, shit, that's Ardi Sarvea, and plant their feet to double tackle him, trusting the usually excellent catch-up defence will get there, except the only guy getting across now is Malherbe, meaning Taylor can take the inside ball and get on the outside of Malherbe and almost up the line himself. Visa making a dumb decision and attempt to make amends, getting himself sent to the bin as a result. In many ways, it's a case of sheer athleticism, but there's also another very good reason why Franz Malherbe isn't being handed this kind of responsibility to make these reads, and that's because he already has enough reading on his hands on Squarespace. After letting in a trial last week from a web builder meeting, the entire pack coming together to discuss how good Squarespace is, this week Razzie gave Squarespace duties solely to Franz. The prop-aware Squarespace makes it so quick and so easy to make a gorgeous new website, he can knock one together for literally every member of the entire team in an afternoon with brilliant results. Every single player delighted with the website Franz has built for them, so shiny and so full of features. Sure, he wasn't quite in position once, but Quagga's website now has a new storefront, which is so easy to add new shop features to and integrate so simply, add payment methods, all sorts. So who's the real winner here? I think it's Franz Malherbe. Beautiful results so easily in no time at all, and if you want to do the same and build your own website and make it as lovely as you choose, even build a website for all of your friends. That's right, me as a child could have built one website. Please use the offer code SquidRugby to save yourself some money. As such, when a defence is built to always be set, the best way to break it open is slowly, phase by phase. And the All Blacks gave us a few passages of brilliance as they almost open the box up repeatedly. An overthrow here grants unexpected possession to the superb Cody Taylor, having a brilliant game, who slaloms some 20 metres ball. Etzebeth makes a call on behalf of the team. Viewing this as a clean-cut turnover chance, the kind they've got the licence to go for, he attempts to steal the ball instead of bouncing out, but loses his feet, and it means Dutoy and Khaleesi here have to work unbelievably hard to make amends, so we've got 2 men instead of 3. Geordie Barrett straightens, but the extra space this is granted allows him to become the first person to make ground in a tackle against Peter Steph Dutoy since 1968, a genuine statistic. You can look it up. The ball, however, is fast, and the All Blacks get it to an edge so they can set their shape cleanly off that touchline. The Bok pack have worked incredibly hard to get across the field here. Dutoy distracted by the pod, allowing Mackenzie to evade Ox and bring Williams onto the ball against an off-balance Etzebeth still finding position after getting back to his feet. And in turn, Williams becomes the first person to bounce off a part of Eben Etzebeth that isn't his fist in over a decade, getting the ball instantly wide. Etzebeth so affronted by this that his eyes are only on Williams getting his revenge shot, leaving Pollard isolated here. He flies in playing the aforementioned centre role, except Lomax once again is filling in that kind of classic 7 link player mould. His dummy is lovely, but it just serves to tenfold isolate Moody out on the wing. This to me feels like a moment of rust. It's over a year since Moody last played on the wing for the Springboks, running a totally different system to one he plays for the Bulls at club level, but nonetheless, he gets the read completely wrong, shooting at the wrong time, going for the wrong player in the wrong space, and it allows Surveyor to drift onto his outside. Taylor takes him to contact, and South Africa set to scramble. DMAC spotting the one weakness once again. The 2 props, Malherbe and Unshay, are grouped together, so he floats into Kane's boot, with Satiti running a lovely line here to once again hold Visa. It allows Mackenzie to get on Malherbe's outside little jink, prompting Unshay to bite in on him and allowing Tupou Vaa'i, who is utterly outstanding on Saturday, just don't think he's getting the credit he deserves. This lad is knocking on the door of world class and no one is talking about him, to hold his depth and then time his run perfectly, making the half break. As per the deep dive we did a few months back on Scott Robertson, Will Jordan Jordan slots in at 10 and plays flat, bringing the defence up and lobbing it over the top. Not looking for the miracle ball to get a score off, but instead the best carry possible. Reese getting over the gain line, with Satiti then making another great carry as he did all day, and Mackenzie going for another good spot here. This pod bounced in one. Vi spotting the setup and calling Lomax to take over his carry instead of him, allowing him as the dummy runner to hold Nokia here, preventing a hard drift. It goes behind to Mackenzie, who runs the same play as earlier, looking to hit a runner on the arcing line outside Moody, grating that rust right off the bike. Taylor, who gets up to within the 5 metre, a full 55 metres further up than where he first received the ball all those phases ago. After a few strong carries, which includes another by Tupovar, who I seriously don't think enough people are talking about, he is so good, Mackenzie calls the perfect shape. It's one we usually see round with 2 centres and 10. Scotland love to run this, but Satiti fills in flawlessly as the 12. Mackenzie shifts from first receiver to the boot in a second, and it pulls Creel here out of line, leaving Colby exposed. And if only the All Blacks had one spare runner on Jordan's outside here, one more man free and on their feet, could be literally anyone, it's probably a try. But without that one man, it's exactly the kind of turnover chance the Springboks have been waiting for every phase over this movement. Khaleesi locks on immediately, and Satiti, the only forward around, targets him, trying to get him out of there, get him out of the ruck, leaving it open for Visa to steal the ball. Ioane coming in too late. Visa feeds it back and Dutoy plays it wide. LaRue putting in a fantastic kick that almost becomes a chance, but in the end, the Boks need to settle for a merely pretty excellent pressure reliever. And yet, right, this is only my second favourite bit where Sia Khaleesi won possession for the Springboks that won't technically go down as an official turnover on his stats of the game, as the second half gave us one of my new favourite moments of summing up Sia Khaleesi's worth and value to this team as a player rather than just as a captain I've seen for a few years. Khaleesi starts the phase here around the 15 metre mark. Ball carrier here, Tupovar, once again outstanding, is his man. However, as the All Blacks go wide, so does Sia. By the time it reaches the far touchline with Ioane, who's there to complete the tackle, but Sia bloody Khaleesi. Ioane goes to deck and a golden opportunity to steal opens itself. Except, spotting this, Geordie Barrett decides, I'm going to do something about that, and comes in low to clear him out. So, Sia stands off. It causes Barrett to fly over the ruck, off his feet. If Sia stays low, goes for the ball, Geordie connects, probably clears him out, and it's a perfectly legal hit. Instead, Khaleesi's dummy jackal, withdrawing himself, causes Barrett to lose his feet. Khaleesi turning instantly to Carly, knowing this in advance, his split second of intelligence after a full width of work buying South Africa the penalty. But that, of course, is far from the headline of his performance, as Khaleesi himself also managed to get himself on the end of the try to put South Africa into a lead they never relinquished. Having been stopped on these drives a few times already, including mere moments ago, the Boks opt to do something different here. One of the now trademark Razzie Tony collab trick plays, with Chesley and Colby sliding last second into hooker. The All Blacks haven't set a pod to jump, so it's safe ball, they're going to win it, and he hits Nokia at the front, with hooker marks here acting as a third nail in the maul. Between the two props here, the idea being that Visa slides to the back, kind of making it a scrum setup. The full front row engaging here with the number 8 in behind ready to break off, and Khaleesi on the flank blocking anyone coming around and adding his weight. Except South Africa kind of get it wrong once the All Black pressure comes on. New Zealand drive them sideways and Visa can't get himself to the back, meaning Khaleesi finds himself with the ball on a splintering maul. No clear path to break off. The whole maul just kind of staggers backwards as Khaleesi tries to get the ball to Williams, eventually giving in, playing the ball away with ground lost. It's a really interesting move, like a kind of open field scrum, and I'd love to see it again with a few tweaks, similar to this replay from last week. In Test 1, the Boks ran it off a 6-man line out, but this week, in order to create more space, they ran it off a 3-man. Theory being, more space, less face. It's easier to make a break against fewer players. It sounds like easy logic, but it didn't come off that way. Having had a week to prepare, Tupovar reads it instantly and fills the hole. The tackle is made and Scott Barrett can get over the ball and win the turnover. In the previous version, the extra few players worked as blockers, preventing All Black tacklers getting into shape and into position to make those tackles and make those turnovers. Without them there, it's just too easy for the All Blacks locks to adjust, not having to run around anyone. There's two really interesting moves here, and it's been fascinating to see Razzie workshop them in real time against the bloody All Blacks, the mad bastard. And I'd be really curious if we see them come out again against Argentina or in the November tour coming up. They do, however, get the ball back from that maul, and thankfully they have a Damian Diolande who churns himself right over the gain line, once again getting them back on their front foot. The Boks recycle quickly, forwards wrapping around the maul, and Unshay carries, Visa bowling Satiti way past the ruck. However, Vai's brilliant work rate means he gets round anyway, filling the gap. He then makes the tackle, but just watch Ruan knock here. He charges right into Ioane, spinning him out, meaning two things. One, the All Blacks can't get in a double tackle, allowing Marks to cross the game line. He's only hitting one man. And two, Rieko Ioane is now facing the wrong way and hence can't bounce out to reload quickly, and that becomes extremely relevant a few seconds later. Before Marks catches the ball, there's just 3 green shirts outside him. By the time Ioane turns back around, there's 6. Pollard, LaRue and Etzebeth are all screaming for the ball as a sensory overload. Ioane has about 1.3 seconds here between turning his back to Khaleesi taking contact, in which time he's got to process the following pieces of information. Number 1, Vili LaRue is shouting for the ball with Cheslin Colby largely unmarked on the wing. Number 2, Lekaniuam is reloading to get an extra man on the overlap, making it very clear. Number 3, Handré Pollard is in the boot, ready to take a pass. And number 4, perhaps most importantly, Eben Etzebeth. Etzebeth for me is the best forward in the world, and a huge part of what makes him so good is that he's not just bloody massive and endlessly aggressive, but has some sort of PhD in making his hits go further, a physical harm diploma if you will. And here, he goes to his textbooks, he finds the best way to cause harm, and he sees it in the form of Damien Diolande, right in front of him, the smallest player on the All Black team. Etzebeth puts his arm out for the ball like it's obvious, the only option. The kind of pose most of us would only do if we're completely unmarked in 20 metres of space, 1 inch from the line. Etzebeth will bowl over Mackenzie here, and he will score, coming onto the ball with 10 metres of momentum. And so, knowing if they're to prevent a try, his 10 will need a double tackle. Ioane starts to bounce out to get on his 10's shoulder to help Mackenzie, only to realise he missed option number 5. Sia goddamn Khaleesi. Khaleesi picks his line late and perfectly, reading Ioane's drift, noting that the centre is only looking outside him and not inside, and so picking a line close yet between these two defenders, plonking himself in the way and crashing over for a try, diving early to make sure he can't be stopped. It's a brilliant finish and a brilliantly worked bit of rugby. One of those moments where the running off the ball makes the running on the ball so much more impactful and dynamic. South Africa then doubled down 20 minutes later as Marks himself finally finished one of those mauls to seal the game. The Boks turning down shots at goal had become a huge theme of the game watching live. This side unwilling to take free if it wouldn't put them in front, and whilst most of those kind of backfired in the moment, resulting in no points whatsoever, ultimately they came good. This final try is a product of every kick for the corner the Boks had run all day, both from a fatigue point of view, which is vital. You can't keep up this kind of pressure, this kind of physicality forever, but also tactically. After last week staying on the ground for most of the game to try and create some added pressure, try and push their forwards into the Springbok system, try and get amongst them defensively, this week the All Blacks did the opposite, almost always sticking someone up in the act of barely competing last week, stealing a few and disrupting countless others. And again, whenever the Boks got down to 22, the All Blacks hold them all, Jason Ryan's expertise kicking in and making their line unbreachable, even by this kind of massive lads from the Springbok land. That was, of course, until those 2 pieces of information got slightly too comfortable and started to intermingle in All Black brains. As former England Lions lock George Cruz pointed out in our recent deep dive on the line-out, competing basically takes 3 of your 8 forwards out of the drive for the first few metres, but also it makes getting into a prime position to stop it basically impossible for your line-out jumpers. However, the All Blacks managed to compound their problem as to maximise the jump and the chance of making the steal. They used Scott Barrett and Luke Jacobson to lift, meaning that the 3 players, Vi, Barrett, Jacobson, they'd want most to focus their counter drive on, look to push through, reach through and disrupt the ball, are uninvolved. The Boks are in total control. NZ do a decent job repelling it physically, but South Africa can wield the maul, opening up this blind side without a Barrett or a Vi there to stop it, to mark it, to lock it down. And in response, seeing it going backwards, TJ Perenara decides to engage to join the maul, opening space on this side. And yet, as the other side collapses, the side close to the referee, Sevu Reece takes a glance to referee Matt Carley, who incidentally was superb, just really, really great all day, to check if he's blown his whistle to end the maul, and that's all the invitation Malcolm Marks needs. Breaking off and taking Reece on the outside to score in the corner. Brilliant opportunism created by a combination of superb patient, build-up physicality from the Boks, and the All Blacks perhaps getting too confident, too comfortable, almost greedy on the 5-metre line. And ultimately, it left them needing a try in a desperate final few minute situation for the first time under Scott Robertson. And in many ways, I think this closing stanza served to show something about New Zealand a lot of us haven't really been taking into account quite enough. Ultimately, right, to look at this blankly as just 2 teams, this was the 6th game under a new coach, and the All Blacks took the best team in the world, one of the best of all time, all the way to the final whistle, pushing until the clock went red. Any other side going through this kind of tradition under this kind of new coach would see this as a really strong sign, a real positive. Yet the All Blacks are graded on a different curve, expected to be imperial at all times, live up to the black jersey. Anything other than a win by 20 points, is unacceptable. I think Saturday gave us a much clearer blueprint of who this team are than the week before did. This new All Blacks, the All Blacks we saw on Saturday feeling a lot more like those England tests, and slowly transforming to look something like Scott Robertson's Crusaders team. Tough as nails, patient, great at creating pressure through kicking and the breakdown, but from those chances they create with that pressure, they can really cut loose and do innovative things in attack. In that deep dive on Robertson a few months ago, I mentioned this is perhaps the first time that an auteur coach with a definitive style of play has ever taken over the All Blacks, and that adaptation is going to take a little bit of time to seep in properly. There are areas in the game that really work, that are really clicking, they're maul and kicking probably amongst them, and even though for the first time since 2018, and first time against the Box since 2001, the All Blacks went a full 80 minutes without scoring a try, we saw signs organised attack could be next on that list. Things starting to come together really nicely over multi-phase. And yet, we also got a suggestion in that final few minutes that managing closing stages where they desperately need a try may be something they perhaps haven't touched on yet. The All Blacks got 4 chances to try and create the match-winning try at the end of the game, and when viewed together, to put it simply, it felt like they had no clear idea what they were going to do whatsoever. It starts here, winning the ball back in their own 22. Mackenzie opts to go for a contestable hanging kick, wanting to win the ball back and attack off that next phase off for more disaligned defence. However, Colby takes it exceptionally well, and from their next shot, their next kick, this drop out, instead of doing the same, looking to hang it and play off that, Mackenzie takes the opposite approach and hits it as long as he can, narrating territory as their best shot at grabbing a try, not possession. But the real sign comes from the resulting knock-on and the scrum that follows with one set piece to win the game. The All Blacks don't seem to have a plan. Now, being a man down thanks to Lomax's stupid yellow card doesn't help, but NZ run a basic crash ball play through Barrett, and Perinara then has no clue what they're going to do next. He's not set up at all. He looks at the blind side but clues forwards still jogging into position on the open side. There's no clear play organised for the second phase beyond a crash ball. In the end, they ultimately do go for the best move the All Blacks have available, which is give it to Ardy, but it's shapeless and easy to defend. They're just lucky that Quagga Smith goes for a hero moment and gives away a preventable penalty, attempting a turnover in a situation where the Box have typically all game been standing off. They go for the corner, but from there it's hubris. A line-out steal, a perfect way to close out a game with so many of them. Ever exceptional PSDT, giving the now pretty excellent Ruin Nokia the chance to end the game. And with it, perhaps end the debate. This is the best Springbok team of all time, ending records that day, dating back to 2018, 2009, 2001, 1949. And in the process, sending a message that will echo throughout rugby history. A genius coach, an inspirational captain, and an incredible crop of talent. A team that has just become undeniable.
Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. That was the second test between New Zealand and South Africa. There is a video on the first test up on the channel elsewhere. There's also a video on the history of this fixture going back 100 plus years. And there's additionally, those two are well worth looking up, I'd like to think. A video on the line-out that we did with George Cruz, the former England lock, former Lions and Saracens lock, who is now England's line-out consultant, and gave us such a brilliant insight into what goes on at the line-out, what goes into a call, what is actually going on when someone gets something wrong. It's a video I'm really proud of. It's a video I think is really, really strong, gives you kind of the understanding that you get from being a top-level player I don't think you can get elsewhere. So please go and have a look at that. I'd really love if people did. This was a podcast on the 2014 Women's World Cup. If you want to go and look at that, Squid Rugby World Cup retrospective. And otherwise, I'll see you next week for more rugby.
And as I ran into the coach's box, I thought, no, I'm not going to make this first half. I don't go to the toilet now.